Okay, I'll begin. Welcome all. Welcome to the third warm-up session. Thank you for attending and thank you for being joining for the previous versions. But I believe that the topics I have discussed are not clear in some of the, especially the logistics. So let me begin with that bit. Um, How's everybody enjoying? Okay, great stuff. So we reached halfway of the warm-up session. We've got today, and then we've got Monday finally. Now we will release today the first bit of the starter kit, but we'll discuss that and we will show you what that is. Now, then Arturo is going to go and explain to you our methodology as well as the first deliverable that needs to be prepared by the 16th of June. No worries, you'll understand everything soon. Now, I wanted to thank you, most of you, for creating your team and for start with your inviting your colleagues. I see there's still some missing, so please let us know if there's any issue over there. And today you will eventually you will have to start working there anyway because you will have to create the deliverable right over there. So thank you for that. Let me start with logistics because there's a couple of questions about that. You will not, most of you are flying from many places, which is fantastic. And thank you for bearing with us with the logistics. It's hectic. But ideally, what is going to happen is that you're going to arrive to Basel. Strasbourg is not very well connected in terms of airports. So what is going to happen is that if you like, we can get you a train ticket, but they're pretty standard and they go every, I think, 45 minutes, something like that. And so it's pretty standard, just get the fare and just go. If we get you one right now and you miss that train, then you will have to pay it on your own. And unfortunately, we don't want that. We want you to not spend on that. So if you can please just get both return tickets and trains, so the way there and then the way back, and then submit it for refund, and that will be, in our opinion, that will be best because ideally you don't waste anything, and then we don't waste money that can go to other things. And of course, we have you there, and you don't miss a train, and you're not with the stress because you have any sort of delay. Especially, I'm speaking to people coming from places like Georgia, places like Turkey, or delays all the time. And so you know. Anyway, that being said, let me go through what the starter kit looks like, which is just part of it. Let me just, before I do that, open it a little bit. This is the document. Let's actually have to share my screen. This is the document that you will receive. Now, of course, you can download it if you like, but you cannot access it. So our suggestion is just use it online, see it, view it, keep the link. Don't need to, because if there's any changes, you will have to download it again and again. So just keep the link whenever you need it. It's basically your guidelines or your guides of the entire hackathon, and it explains everything. Here, of course, the introduction and the welcome, you will have your own time to read it. Then the index here, basically what you're going to see is that you've got the goals, the venue, the challenges, the 4 challenges one of them they use register to. Then the 2 phases of the hackathon, which one is this one that we're running right now, and phase 2 is the hackathon event. Then we will be speaking about the deliverable, especially today the deliverable 1. But as you're going to find out later, the deliverables 2 and 3 are not yet there. So you cannot work on them, but we will go through the deliverable 1 and how is it going to be working. But for that, I'm going to give the word to my colleague Arturo, that is going to explain to you how this works, and then my colleague Camila is going to explain more about the challenge. So please, Arturo, if you can share your screen. and I'll let you speak. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks, you all. Hello to everyone. Okay, I will share my screen now just to explain to you how to get to deliverable number one, and also to introduce you the methodology that we made for you. So we have here the starter kit, right? So navigating the starter kit provides all the information, not only about the hackathon, but also about the Council of Europe, the New Democratic Pact, and also the No Hate Speech Week. You have to remember that everything that we are doing, it's under this umbrella. We are innovating for the human rights to add value to the New Democratic Pact of Europe, as well as minimizing the hate speech. If we go directly to our index, we'll find here deliverable number one. So we have here all the information for the deliverable. I'm going to explain to you the first deliverable, but first we have to be on the same page that this starts right away after this briefing. The deliverable number one starts now, and we have to submit it June 16 before 15 hours in the Creathon page. You will have here the template that you can download it. That here we have the template that you have to use for the submission. That provides a cover, problem statement, intent, legal and ethical framework, and solution overview. You will have here an empty space to work on it because all the information is on the starter kit. So it's a free space that you can use whatever you like, but you have to provide no more than 5 slides. Why? To standardize everything. Now that we know a bit how to use the starter kit and how to download the template, I will go directly to the deliverable number one and the methodology. As we said, we are under the umbrella of the New Democratic Pact and No Hate Speech. And given these initiatives, the Council of Europe has different thematic goals, such as data privacy, no hate speech, prevent malicious doxing, and so on. Under this context, that's why we're generating this methodology, which is a human rights-centered innovation. Why a human rights-centered innovation? Because we are putting in the center to be democratic responsible, technical viable, and legally sound under a UX and UI packaging to make it relevant, cohesive, and easy to use. Because this methodology with these different lenses of technical, legal, and UX, that's why we're calling different experts and team members to play different roles, such as the technologist, the policy expert, and the designer. Guys, you are the dream team for human rights-centered innovation. That's why we are having this kind of profiles during these hackathons. Not only the technical expertise is important here, also the understanding of the mindset of the New Democratic Pact and No Hate Speech. That's why you're invited. You're invited to come to the hemicycle on each plenary session, because there will be provided important information and insights to incorporate to your solution. So it's not only about what you think, but also the conversation that happens during the workshops and during the plenary sessions. And that's why we have 4 different tracks. Okay, all these tracks needs to deliver 3 different deliverables. Here is the first deliverable, that it's the problem understanding and also a first pitch of your solution. Now it's time to clearly communicate and refine your approach. But now you have new insights. Now you have, obviously, your team that you will be working during this week, but also a set of resources that the different mentors curated for you. Where do I look for the resources? Well, at the end of each deliverable, you will find the resources and the evaluation criteria. If I click here on resources, they will be uploaded after this session. There will be a list of resources and also links to access to have different kind of information, such as data sets, public policies, and research papers. Also, you will have here the Ask a Mentor link on the deliverable, where you can chat with the different mentors in order to ask questions and have guidance from them. As I said, this will be working after this session. Each deliverable template has the name of the deliverable, and here you're gonna write your team's name. And then a space to work on the template. You can use however you like your template, but stick to the design. For example, here I can have a picture and then working here on the text and having the design that fits more to the information that I like to communicate. It's up to you guys. Okay, the deliverable number one has different topics. The first one, I mean, you already did this, but you have a first iteration of first approach. Now you have your resources and ask the mentors. So the first topic is about the problem, and it's about to showcasing a systemic gap. With this, I mean that the problem that you are addressing is not an isolated problem. It's connected or it's reinforced with different agents or feedback loops that you have to show to the jury, but also to prove yourself that you deeply understand the problem and also the human dynamics and behaviors that are happening within the problem. So we have here some trigger questions that will help you to clearly communicate this topic, which is what systemic problem or gap is undermining democracy or enabling hate speech or different behaviors, incentive, vicious loops, and so on. And also, who is affected and what are the consequences or impacts on these individuals, communities, institutions, and so on. So it's explaining what's happening and for who. Now that we have the problem, now it's time to speak about the intent. The intent is not precisely the solution, but it's the direction of the solution, which is the desirable future or the outcome or the behavioral change that we want to create. This desirable future, we need to point out which is the key insight or leverage point that could be used to shape behaviors, decisions, and so on, which is the incentive, either technical one or human one, because the future will not be created by itself. We need to intervene in that solution, in that desirable outcome. That's why we need to be clear about which core insight are we gonna leveraging our solution. Now that we have the problem and intent, it's time to explain the legal and ethical framework. Guys, I mean, all the topics are important, but these I strongly recommend to get deeper into the resources that the mentor curated for you, because these are the foundation of the new democratic pact and the no hate speech policies. Explain the legal, ethical, and governance consideration, including risks, safeguards, and democratic implications for your solution that you're gonna take into account. what policy, governance, or systemic leverage points could help to address this issue, and how will the team balance ethical consideration and freedom of expression. This, which is not a trade-off, but this balance is really important about how to have governance about the speech, but also don't get into privacy issues or mitigating freedom of expression. This is really important. And at the end, the solution overview, which you will provide a brief overview of your proposed solution, its primary goal, and the core logic behind how it works. First, stating what is the solution? It's a platform, it's an app, it's a model. So what is a solution? How does it address the identified problem or opportunity? And how does it work? On deliverable number 2, you will be generating during the hackathon a blueprint. So in this case, it's not necessary to generate a blueprint, but at least to have clear the 3 or 5 steps about how your solution works, because those steps will guide you during the blueprint to ground it in a more detailed blueprint or workflow or method. So basically, this is the deliverable number 1, stating the problem, understanding clearly the problem and stating it, your intent, your legal and ethical framework, and your solution overview. You need to work this beforehand, obviously, because on the hackathon it will be all about hands-on to generate the mock-ups, the flowcharts, and ultimately building your digital handover. That's why you need to have clear direction for your execution, and that's why we're doing this beforehand. Basically, this is the deliverable number 1. Hugo, I don't know if you would like me to provide more information about this or any other subject.
It's up to you, of course, if you want to share any of your insights on the methodology that we created and how we created together with the challenge owners. But other than that, you tell me.
Yeah, so the methodology, as I said, is not to think only about the product. Think the why about the product, why we're doing this, to understand the new democratic pact. That's why the plenary sessions are fundamental. It's fundamental as well to understand the human dynamics behind each of your solution, because ultimately people will be the ones that will be the final users. When I say people, it's to identify your user. Are them scientists, journalists, common people as me? So we have to understand for who we're doing this.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for this presentation. I hope it's clear now the times and deadlines that the teams have to start acquiring to present, because of course this basically kicks off the actual work of your team. So that said, you will receive later today this starter kit that we showcased to you, and feel free to start working and start chatting with mentors if you have any questions. Now, I'm going to give the word to Camila Weinmann so she can explain to you better her track challenge that she designed. Thank you, Camila.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Hugo. 1 minute that I will share my screen. Can you see my screen? Yes. Okay. Thank you again. I'm Camila Weinmann. I'm researcher at Democracy Reporting International, and yeah, I'm the challenge owner of challenge number 3, which is from reporting to response, addressing online gender-based violence and online hate speech. So I know you have already some information about this challenge, but here the question is, or the first question is, why this matters, right? So we all know that online gender-based violence, which stands for OGBV, and hate speech, which is considered a category of illegal speech online, are major barriers to democracy, to political participation, and are basically affecting more women candidates, for example. So we know this is happening, this is new to us, but although online gender-based violence and online hate speech as a form of online illegal speech sound similar, synonyms, and sometimes they may overlap, they are conceptually different, right? And they are addressed to different systems, frameworks, and regulations. So here I have brought some of them, which I believe they are the most important for us right now, but are the EU or member state laws and electoral regulations from each country. Also the Digital Services Act, which is the main digital framework for platform accountability in the European Union. In addition to this, we have also the Code of Conduct on illegal speech, the Code of Conduct on disinformation, which includes the Rapid Response System, which is a mechanism that gets activated around elections, for example, where researchers, CSOs, social media platforms are together and can review harmful content. But we also have platforms terms of use, which say which type of content is allowed or not allowed in each social media platform. So as you might see here, we have different mechanisms that address this harmful content, right? However, the problem here, it's not that we are lacking of regulation, because we have a lot. The problem it's that access to these mechanisms is sometimes uneven, because as I was saying, for example, the rapid response system, it's only get access by some CSOs, some platforms, some researchers, which contributes and turns to this problem that we defined in the challenge as a fragmented reporting, and those different escalations pathways for cases for harmful content targeting candidates in this case. So, as I was saying, the access is fragmented, and the escalation depends on who are in these spaces, and sometimes on pre-existing relationships or different platform-specific procedures, which are related to each platform terms of use. So as you can see, the scenario here, it's quite fragmented, and this is what we would like to contribute to solve in the hackathon. Here I put a slide which I think it's essential from the policy side, and this is relates to the point that I was saying previously, right? That sometimes online gender-based violence and online hate speech overlap. However, they are not the same in terms of the nature, and they are not treated the same way in the regulation. This is very important, because if at the end we want to create a prototype with a package as well that has recommendations on how to refer and escalate the content, we need to acknowledge the nature of each phenomenon. So for example, it's important to understand that under this challenge, we understand OGBV as a risk, whether hate speech as suspected cases of illegal speech. So OGBV can be understood as gendered abuse, intimidations. There are different forms, harassment, and it's a non-binary category. However, online hate speech might be, right? And speech might be illegal or not according to EU or member states laws. This is important to consider, because the solution here needs to be sensitive to this as well. So here, as I was saying, and I bring this example on the Digital Services Act, treats OGBV, online gender-based violence, as a risk, where researchers and platforms need to assess the risk it has and recommend mitigation measures. However, the DSA treats online hate speech as notice and action mechanisms for these suspected cases. So you see the way of treating this content is different. So here I put some main questions that may help you to define whether a content or a post or has OGBB or online hate speech, whether again OGBB is related to the risk, and we will need to ask ourselves whether the content or the pattern creates risks for democracy, for political participation, or whether the content that we are saying is potentially violating a law, right? And then this has again an impact, as I was saying before, on the possible responses that we can offer, right? Because if we identify that the content might be OGBB and may be a risk, then we'll need to, of course, document, classify, assess the risk, and suggest mitigation measures. Whether the online hate speech suspected cases, we also want them to document, to report, and however, ask the platform to review the content and if needed to remove the content. This is important when also drafting the first deliverable, of course, but also thinking of the solution, right? And thinking how these two different things might be addressed and whether what's happened if or when they overlap. So this brings another layer of complexity, but I think it makes everything a bit more interesting, and I'm sure that the solution can address both, at least from a conceptualization part. So here, the target users, who are the target users of this solution, are institutional actors, right? So are actors that are involved in election monitoring and should address and respond to these risks and harmful content, including but not limited to electoral commissions, trusted flaggers, which is a figure suggested in the Digital Services Act, and or platform integrity teams. So the target users here are institutional actors. And the desired output is a prototype, wireframe, or proof of concept, which turns these fragmented reports that I was referring at the beginning into a structured evidence to support institutional actors. And so the solution, as I was saying, should classify, prioritize, and suggest different ways of addressing and responding to online and illegal hate speech and OGBB target candidates. So here it's important that the app, of course, it's not, or the app or the prototype or the solution should not make a decision, right? It should help to classify and structure the evidence that now it's scattered. So this is the main issue here, and of course, distinguishing whether the content contains OGBB or hate speech. Yes, and the output, this is a suggestion, but should include like a user flow, key data fields, classification criteria, prioritization logic, and proportionate response options. This is key. Here's a bit about the constraints and safeguards that the output should have and be aware of. So the solution should be designed for institutional actors, as I was saying, and should be designed for sensitive electoral context, right? So we want to test this output in an electoral context, including rights-based safeguards, of course, to distinguish between legitimate political expression from suspected illegal speech and or OGBB. So the solution should have a narrow and legally grounded understanding of hate speech, of illegal speech. And again, this difference between OGBB and illegal speech is crucial, right? So OGBB is not a category of hate speech, of illegal speech. The solution should also reflect the different mandates, right? So the Electoral Commission may have a different role from a trusted flagger and from a platform integrity team. Should protect sensitive data and personal political data, and should account for different types of content in terms of languages, cross-platform, different platforms, verification challenges, and again, something which is really crucial, should support proportionate responses, right? So we would like to avoid the solution of over-removing everything, because this might be against freedom of expression, right? So this is something key to have in mind. And regarding the resources you will find on the platform, that we have included, again, political policy and regulatory resources, right? So the DSA, the Digital Services Act, the EU framework, decision on racism and xenophobia, the code of conduct on disinformation and hate speech, and the Commission guidelines for very large online platforms and very large online search engines, specifically focusing on electoral contexts, among others. So this is important. And again, the solution should acknowledge different regulations and should also be sensitive to different jurisdictions. So this is key. I've also included some technical assets and data sources. So the different platform data access options. For example, we know that the API, Telegram API, YouTube API, it's free, open source. So I encourage you to use this. I've shared some public hate speech data sets and catalogs, which might be also interesting when defining hate speech, and relevant case studies related to OGBB as well. I also will share for the teams interested in under this challenge on the platform, literature review and some cases that discuss this idea of OGBB as a risk, as a systemic risk under the DSA, which I think it's key and essential, and I'm sure it will bring you light on this point and to clarify and to define and distinguish better OGBB as a risk and hate speech. So you'll have this as well. And then I've also included some inspirational material. I will show 2 cases right now, but I will also share with you more in terms of taxonomies, monitoring practices, which might be useful for you as well, and visualization examples as some examples that I know. Of course, this is not exhaustive, the list is not exhaustive, so if you may happen to know something else, then feel free to use it, of course. And here we were invited to bring successful cases, and in my case, it was a bit hard to find some successful cases that try to, of course, solve this challenge, because there are no, I guess, and this is why it's so important, this space, the hackathon. However, I found 2 different case studies, which I think they bring different inspiration. So this first, it's about a German project, right, which it's called Respective Net, so respecting on the internet, right? So here I will share the link later, but I think you can get inspiration for case intake, triage, referral pathways, and user-friendly reporting design, because this solution was specifically for reporting cases on online hate speech. Here you can see how it looks. It's a website. So you just put your email, the subject, the screenshot, the link, you describe the case, and then they get reviewed. Something that I found very interesting for this case, because here was not targeting candidates, it was, I think, targeting anyone. So this option to get counseling, right? But this is, again, this was another challenge, another problem. But sometimes that, no, this is something that caught my attention as well. And the solution offered educational resources as well. So you might see here, I put this screenshot of the website, but you can also see how they are thinking in broader terms, right? However, this is not what we are asking for, but just also for inspiration. And the second case that I brought, it's a bit older, but I thought, okay, this might be also interesting because it brings this idea of risk scoring, evidence collection, how to display the information, and a structured case reporting, which it's the Jigsaw Harassment Manager, a solution that was developed also with Google and Reuters. And this solution, this tool documents and manages online abuse on online platforms, right? And again, this idea of a priority score, right? And then this option here that the tool generates different reports that can be shared with different actors. So I thought this might be a good idea as well to add, and some features. So again, food for thought. And yeah, that's all from the challenge. I hope I brought more light than confusion. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the hackathon, to meeting you in person next week, and yeah, to continue addressing and discussing the different solutions in our platform.
Thank you very much, Camila. Thank you very much for explaining us about your challenge and all of the tools that participants will be able to use. Now, here, for now, the time that we got, we can open the mics for questions. So if anybody has any questions related to Camila's track, please, right now is your time. If you have any other type of questions, just wait a second and let's see if there's no questions. Okay, if the track is clear, does anybody have any doubts with regards to the methodology and the deliverable one? Good. Okay, Marina, I'm going to give you and allow you to participate. So please, you're on mute, but you can unmute yourself.
Hi, are you hearing me?
Yes.
Sorry, just I've been having some issues with the sound in the very beginning of the meeting, so I just want to make sure for the first deliverable, we have to deliver it in the form of the presentation that you provided, right? It's not going to be in the form of a text document, just the Google Doc. I mean the Google presentation that you showed.
Yes, it need to be done in the presentation, which is a template that is provided on the starter kit.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. Now, are there any other questions with regards to the deliverable or the methodology? Remember that you have a tight deadline on the 16th. You have to provide that, but you will receive later today the starter kit with all of the information that you require to begin working. Any other open? Now let's open to any other kind of questions if there's any. Okay, I'll let you speak. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your name. Can you please explain? Say your name first, and remove your mute. Yeah, unmute
Sorry,
yourself.
my name is Raj.
Sorry. Okay.
Okay, I just want to ask if the deliverable, like, should we submit it on the format of like a PowerPoint?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand. Did any of
Do
the
we,
other?
yes, the format of the deliverable, should it be on a PowerPoint or a doc, a
Yeah,
Word
you could
document?
save it. I guess you could save it as a PowerPoint or as a PDF. So, and you just have to upload it. All of the explanations are right there on the document, no worries. But yeah, it should be easy to download. It should be easy to upload to the platform.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Any other open questions? Okay. I think that anything else that might arise, you can already send us directly a message on the chat of the platform. I see that some of you started using your team pages, which is cool. I see some nice creativity. That's very nice. Awesome. Then yeah, if there's anything else that you may need, you can simply use the chat. Other than that, we'll let you go. Thank you very much for attending the third and yeah, the midway. And let's do this again on Monday when you will have to deliver the deliverable and will be the last warm-up session before you travel to Strasbourg. Thank you very much for attending. Have a good one. Bye-bye.